Spurgeon here with RevZilla TV to talk to you today about the GPR V1 and V4 steering stabilizers available at RevZilla.com. The V1 and V4 stabilizers from GPR are going to improve the handling of your motorcycle without requiring a heavy lift and drilling into your frame. Now these are going to be for the sport bike market. The V1 is going to be for you guys out there rocking older sport bikes, and the V4 is going to be for you guys out there with newer late model sport bikes. They're all bike specific, so make sure you're using the bike finder on our website to get the kit that's right for you. Once you have the right kit for your bike, install on this is going to be a 2 out of 3 on our BSD, our Beard Scale of Difficulty for installation. We'll hit install more at the end. Right now, let's jump in and talk about what sets these dampers apart from other dampers out there in the market. So GPR is located in San Diego, California. It's a family-owned and operated company, and it's a father-son operation. You've got Ralph the father, you've got Randy the son. With their combined knowledge, they've set out to create a damper that's going to give you performance without a heavy lift of install, but they really want to focus on getting you faster on your motorcycle. So the V4 and the V1 are two dampers that are going to be designed for sport bike use, and they're going to have shared qualities as well as a few differences between the two. Before we get into these, let's talk briefly about what a steering damper does. A steering damper simply dampens your steering. Duh. What does that mean? So when you're looking at your handlebars in your motorcycle, adding a steering damper simply adds resistance to the sweep of your handlebars. So as you're turning from left to right, it's a little bit harder to do so. What this does is if you get a high-speed wobble or if you're riding over rough terrain, this is simply going to smooth that out. It's a simple solution to a problem that is common among most riders. These are going to be rotary mount dampers, which means they're going to sit on top of your steering head, which is a little bit different than the tubular dampers, which you need two distinct mounting points and can become damaged in a crash. So the V1 and the V4, I want to start with the V1. The V1 on my left-hand side is going to be for you sport bike riders out there rocking an older sport bike. This was their original damper, and they've left it in production to give everyone an option, even if you have an older bike. Now, some of the features that are going to be shared between the two, both are going to be a full T6 6061 aluminum design, and they're going to be anodized in a variety of different colors. They stuck with the T6 6061 because it's lightweight, and it's also hugely durable to any of the elements that you might throw at it out in the track or the street. Now, the V1 in my hand is going to be slightly heavier than the V4. This is going to come in around that 16-ounce mark, and it's going to be a little bit bulkier and bigger in its construction. Now, the one thing that I want to point out is there's one base control knob on this. One is less dampening. Your steering stem and steering handlebars can actually flow more freely. 8 is going to be the most amount of dampening. So you can actually have 36 different points on here. Now, 1 through 8 is just a guide, and as you're turning this, you can feel the clicks. It's not going to be as a distinct click through as you're going to see with the V4, but you can still slightly feel the clicks in here. The other thing that I want to point out is that it's on a rotary circuit, which means you can go right from 8, which is the most amount of dampening, and click right back through to 1 for the least amount of dampening. With some dampers that you see out there, you have to ratchet up righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. With this one, if you get to 8, you simply click it right back around, and you're right back at 1, which loosens it right up again for you. The other key thing that I want to point out with the V1 is that the V1, the dampening sweep on this, and I want to set it down for 1 second, the dampening sweep on this is going to be a little bit more narrow. So as you're in your handlebar section in the middle of your sweep, it's going to give you a full range of dampening. As you get to a full lock position where your handlebars are turned all the way to the right or all the way to the left, the dampening kind of kicks off. So just something to keep in mind if you're considering the V1. Now, the V4 on my right-hand side is going to be the upgrade to the V1. This is going to be for you guys out there rocking new sport bikes, late model, high-performance machines that want the most amount of dampening possible. Let's talk about some of the upgrades. First and foremost, they've dropped the weight. This is down to about 12.5 ounces roughly when I threw it on the scale. The other thing you're going to see is that the actual adjuster knob has changed. It's larger and it's gnarled, and it's designed to give you better feel, better feedback when you have gloves on. You have 20 different positions on here, and they're true positions. Where on the V1, you saw that 1 through 8, but there were really 36 different points you could click to. On this, you have 20 set points, and they're going to be a clear click-through. You can actually hear it click, there it is, as you're turning the knob. Same thing, it's on a rotary circuit, so you can go right from 20, you can flip it back over to 0, and you're at its minimal design. So you can go right from the lowest setting up to the highest setting on the fly. The other thing that I want to talk about is this is a full range of motion for your sweep. Like we talked about with the V1, it kind of, when you get to full lock, it opens up and it frees up. And then when you go back to the center, it gives you that dampening right in the middle section. With the V4, a lot of street bike riders were talking about they want that full range of sweep through the entire motion, and you get it. So there's no back off in the dampening. The dampening goes through the full 90 degrees of your sweep motion with the V4. The other thing the V4 has is improved circuitry inside. So all the fluids that are rolling around inside this thing are going to be a little bit denser, a little bit tighter, and you're going to have more resistance. Even if I were to set this at 0 and I were to set this at 0, the V4 is going to give you much more resistance. Again, as we've seen the performance of sport bikes really amp up over the years, the dampeners have had to be increased as well in quality to give you better dampening on these really high performance machines that we're seeing in modern motorcycles. Now, between the two, they're both going to mount very similarly. There's going to be an exact kind of mounting system that's going to work with both, and neither one is going to be required you to drill into the frame. What you are going to need to do is you are going to have to remove your steering head stem. So before you get started, you need to make sure you have a factory service manual because you need to know your torque settings, and you have to have a torque wrench with the appropriate adapters to get that steering head stem on and off. Once you have those in place, install is going to be a 2 out of 3 on our BSD, or Beard Scale of Difficulty for installation. And that's simply because it's going to be a time-consuming process. You need to make sure you have the right tools, and you need to make sure you blocked out a good 2 to 3 hours to get this on your bike. You've got one main mount that's going to fit over your steering stem, and it's also going to come with a guide that's going to work on the other side, so right on your tank-mounted side, and that's going to actually guide the damper unit itself. Once you have these two pieces installed with the damper on top, you're going to have to go out, you're going to have to play with the motorcycle, and you're going to have to play with the dampening unit. I would always start off with the least amount of dampening and then slowly ratchet it up to find an appropriate setting for you. The other thing that I really like about this is they're both rebuildable units, but you're looking at about 2 to 3 years, depending on use, before you'd ever have to spend the time to rebuild this. All in all, I think GPR gave you a great dampener, and it really gets away from some of the heavy install lifts we see on other dampening units out there in the market. It's basic in its design with one control, and it's super easy and friendly to use if you've never used a steering damper before. There's plenty of riders out there rocking a GPR product. If you want to hear more about what they have to say, do me a favor, click below. Read other riders' opinions and thoughts on the steering dampers by GPR they have on their bikes. More questions for us? Never hesitate, get us on the phone, 877-792-9455, and chat with the Gear Geek, or simply type us out an email, cs@RevZilla.com. Thank you for joining us for this look at the GPR V1 and V4 steering stabilizers. I'm Spurgeon. Enjoy the ride.